Executive Director, and on behalf of all the guests and the staff here at St. Anthony's, it's great to have you here this morning. For decades, we here at St. Anthony's have been working with people who are homeless and those who are on the verge of becoming homeless. And what we've seen more often, unfortunately than not, is we have people who feel very isolated and feel very excluded. So I'm very happy to see that when the mayor has something to say about the homeless population of San Francisco, that he comes to the Tenderloin and comes here to St. Anthony's today. So thank you, Mayor, for coming. For decades, we at St. Anthony's have insisted that those we serve, the homeless particularly, are not the problem, that they are brothers and sisters, that the problem has to do with us and the way we structure our lives and structure our cities and things like that. So I'm great to see that when we really want to do something about homelessness, that it's the mayor coming forward and making some very good proposals for how we can solve our problem, not fix the homeless. It's a problem for our city. There's a lot of people here today who've been working for years on that problem. It's, again, a problem for the whole community, but it's also one that we need the city to step forward to help us do. So we, again, welcome the mayor in his remarks today. So without further ado, I'd like to recognize a couple of people here that have come, who've been long involved in these issues. Angela Alioto is here today, so thank you for being here. From the San Francisco Interfaith Council, we have Michael Papas and Rita Semmel. Supervisor Mark Farrell is here. Can you recognize him? Supervisor Julie Christensen. And all the department heads here of the city and all the community-based organizations that are represented. Again, thank you for coming and welcome to St. Anthony's.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Let me begin with just some comments about some things that have occurred in the last 48 hours that I know on our people's minds, and I want to address that right off before I get into the body of the speech. But I want to start out with some words about the officer-involved shooting that occurred yesterday in the Bayview and that resulted in the death of a man. Let me first say that anytime there is an officer-involved shooting, I take that extremely seriously, and so does our chief. And I've seen the video too, and you look at that video and before my words came out, we're all yelling, "Drop the damn knife." Well, I've already spoken to the chief, and there'll be a thorough and transparent investigation of this incident without delay. And I know the public deserves this and should expect it, and I will expect that as well. And we will make sure the community knows all the details about this. I also want to take a moment of silence with all of you to remember the victims of the tragic and senseless shootings in San Bernardino yesterday. Our thoughts are with the victims and their families, and the people of San Francisco grieve with them. But you know what they really deserve? Those families deserve action. They deserve a Congress that will stop this madness, and by enacting sensible limits on deadly firearms, and they need to do that now. We cannot just accept this. We cannot just accept this. Thank you. Thank you. And again, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. First, again, I want to say thank you to St. Anthony's and Barry for hosting us this morning. Barry, you and your staff's commitment to helping the needy and the vulnerable throughout the entire city is an inspiration to me. And it's never tiring to cut turkey with you, Barry. I also want to say thank you to all of our elected officials and appointed officials, our community leaders. Many of our nonprofit providers are here this morning. Thank you very much for joining us today. You know, I'm very proud of being reelected as your mayor. This is really a wonderful city. And I want to say thank you to the voters of San Francisco who believe in our solutions-oriented, our collaborative approach to solving problems, and have asked us to return to do more. Thank you for placing your trust in me for the next 4 years. This is the greatest city in the world, and I'm honored and humbled as a mayor to serve another term. You know, I've often said, and I will continue saying, I love this city. I love it as much as any of you, and also with you. And I love that we never run from the challenges. We confront them with our progressive optimism and something that has come to define our city and all of us. You know, we've tackled a whole lot this last 5 years, and some of the most complicated and seemingly intractable challenges still remain. And I ran for a second term so we can work on them all together. And foremost among those enduring challenges, one we have struggled with for decades, is homelessness. Let there be no doubt, the collective best efforts of service providers like all of you in this room today have certainly made a difference. I know that because I've been paying attention to this for many years. And while I may be a little silent sometimes, I watch, I talk to people, I engage, and once in a while, I might be lucky enough to hand out a key. You're the ones, everyone in this room, you're the ones giving the heroic efforts as frontline staff on a midnight shift in one of our shelters. You're doing the early morning outreach for people. You're working as case managers with a challenging load. You're staffing the desk at the drop-in center. Or you might be the one cleaning up the streets so that people might even have a cleaner street to be on because that's the only place they have. The best evidence of all of your work collaboratively is the over 20,000 formerly homeless people who are living indoors, living independently, and with the social and emotional support that they need, and that the needs that are met with our city services, or they might even be back in their hometowns. But despite this, we haven't eliminated homelessness. As we house and serve thousands, they're replaced by new thousands, people who fall into homelessness here, people sent here from other states, or people who arrive every day seeking a better life in our city. And as a result, we continue to have people living on the street, under the freeway, in tents on the sidewalk, and some even without tents. Altogether, more than 3,500 people are street homeless in San Francisco. Human beings with hopes, with fears, susceptible to cold and rainy weather. Human beings who deserve our compassion. We know there are nearly the same number of people without homes that are living in our shelters, treatment programs, or in temporary situations. Friends, this isn't a healthy way to live. You know that, and I know that, especially if children are part of that family. It's not just a growing problem here in San Francisco, by the way, and we all know that as well. Major cities across our country, Los Angeles, New York, Honolulu, Seattle, and more. And the state and federal governments offer us too little assistance. That's why next week I'll be joining at least 5 other mayors on the West Coast and our federal government representatives to explore federal funding opportunities and policy changes in the area of homelessness. I know we look at the street sometimes and the encampments, the depth and the complexity of the problems, and to some it all might feel a little hopeless. But as your mayor, and certainly as your mayor for the next 4 years, I'm optimistic. Because today in San Francisco, all of the ingredients of success are already here to end homelessness for thousands of our fellow citizens. Thanks to an historically strong economy, we do have resources. We certainly have creativity, and we know we got the passion. And from our service providers and our city staff, we have the energy that's required. We have public support to try new, more effective approaches. But you know what's been missing? What's been missing in that ingredient that's been lacking for generations? It's what we call real cooperation. We can't solve street homelessness, but it will, if we want to, it will require cooperation. We've seen this cooperation at the place called the Navigation Center at 1950 Mission Street. When community providers work with city departments, when the private sector and the surrounding community all come together with us, we actually are creating a national model for ending homelessness. So next year, we're going to do something bold that scales up the cooperation and the coordination that this requires. And we see at the Navigation Center all of that happening across the board on homelessness. I will call upon all the departments to work together with our community-based organizations, with our advocates, and our national experts to change and reform our government and hopefully other governments. And we are going to create a new department, a department with a mission to end homelessness here in San Francisco. You know, I begin by not just making an announcement. I know people have worked on this for years. And I want to acknowledge first the great work of our past mayors, Mayors Feinstein and Agnos, Mayor Jordan, Mayor Willie Brown, of course, Mayor Gavin Newsom. I want to build on each of their legacies for addressing homelessness. And of course, our former supervisor, Anja Alioto. You talk about passion. She's dedicated a lifetime to this work. And Angela, I want to say first and foremost, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a trusted advisor for me, an advocate, and one that reminds everybody we've got to get to better solutions. I want to also acknowledge the good work of our former supervisor, Bevan Dufty, our director of Hope for the last 4 years, for his tireless work with service providers and clients to move people into better lives. I've learned a lot with Bevan, but I certainly felt his passion every single day he's been on the job. And today, building on the work that came before, we begin a new agency, an agency with a budget and with a mandate to solve homelessness. We'll bring together under one roof the multitude of homeless outreach, housing, shelter, and supportive services that exist across many different departments. And over the last 20 years, we've increased our spending on homelessness because the crisis got worse. But because we didn't have a central department for homelessness, we layered program upon program across a dozen different departments, and then we expected a better outcome. No one agency's mission was homelessness, and today we fix that. With greater coordination, we expect better results, more efficiencies, and deeper accountability. And to make this new department a reality next year, I'll be calling upon the leadership of Barbara Garcia, the Director of our Public Health, Trent Rohr, the Director of our Human Services, and Sam Dodge, of course, the now Director of Hope. Together, we have already implemented some of the most forward-thinking, progressive homeless policies in our country. We've created the nation's first navigation center, which is just 9 months. It will have successfully moved more than 250 people off the streets into healthier settings. Great progress towards ending chronic veterans' homelessness has been done these last few years. Tackling family homelessness, we've made great progress. And a new investment in supportive housing of $29 million just this year. I want to say thank you to Trent, to Barbara, to Sam, to all of your teams for pouring your hearts into this work. And I want to say thank you for joining forces with us to take it to the next level. I want to say a special thank you to Public Works. I know that department. You kept our streets clean. You've certainly done your best, and for always having a positive interaction with our homeless people and with the compassion and the patience. Thank you for taking on the smelliest, dirtiest jobs in town. I also want to say thank you to all of the people who own single-room occupancy hotels in this city. The hotels who are now cooperating with us, working with us to make these units available for people transitioning out of homelessness. You know, that stock of housing, we never thought through our past lawsuits and our insistence to get code enforcement on them, we didn't realize how valuable they were to us, how such an asset and resources they can be. Now, I know some people will say, a department to solve homelessness, Mayor? Kind of naive. We can't solve homelessness in San Francisco. I know that's going to be some people's comments. Well, I say that we will end homelessness every single day for at least one person, for at least one family, for at least a veteran every single day. I know because I have felt the power of giving keys to people exactly in those situations. We will end it for everyone, for every day, for someone who suffers on our street. This is what the purpose of creating this department is all about. I want to staff at this new department. Each person on that staff will come to work every single morning with a single-minded focus of ending homelessness for people on the streets. I want the measure of the work of this department and my office to be answering this question. What did I do to end homelessness on our city's streets today? And what did I do to give people a stable shelter, a home, and a path to a healthier life? That's what I want them to ask themselves every single day. I want that to be the question that they ask of themselves. You know, ending homelessness in a very simple way is a matter of priorities. To get there, we have to double down on programs that truly work. We have to coordinate with partners, federal, state, and other cities. We have to share and do those best practices, and we have to also share our challenges with each other. And you know, I always am focused and concerned about Congress. And as you know, Congress has largely abandoned homelessness in this country, and we in San Francisco, those on our street, we can't wait for the politics of Washington, D.C. to arrive. We've got to lead. And how do we lead? Well, we lead with our values, our San Francisco values. And that's what being a San Franciscan is all about, isn't it? It's our values. To be fully able to achieve this bold vision, I'm inviting a group of national experts to advise us on how to create and set the mandate for this new department. I've already spoken to President Obama's point person on homelessness, Matthew Doherty, and he's agreed to come out and advise us in creating this new department, and he's got the experience of looking at every program across the country to compare us to see what really works. We want to be aggressive on this, but we need to be practical at the same time. How will we define solving street homelessness? What are the most efficient investments we're currently making, and how can we double down on this? Is there something that we could be doing that we aren't already doing? I also want to invite the local Homeless Coordinating Board to serve as a formal advisory body during this process. We've already convened San Francisco's best and brightest on that commission, and we'll definitely need your input. I invite all of you here, every one of you, the people who are working hard every day, day in and day out, to join us in defining this new effort as well, because I'll present this plan under my charter powers with the budget this coming year. Foremost among our efforts under the department will be expanding our successful Navigation Center program. We've learned that by removing barriers to entry into the shelter program and pairing every Navigation Center with a housing exit, we are making a difference. We've already committed the funding in the budget this year to double our capacity at the Navigation Center. And the department will significantly increase our commitment to this model. We'll coordinate outreach and service and housing efforts at navigation centers, and we'll build more centers, and we'll secure more housing exits. Certainly, this requires serious funding. Well, since I took office, we've been spending almost $100 million more every year on homeless services and housing. And my commitment today is this: to never let our city slip backwards on our funding priorities. That means moving forward. We're going to spend at least $250 million per year on homeless outreach and supportive housing for tens of thousands of people. But we all know success isn't measured by how much money we spend. You all know that. Accountability really matters. We'll be measured by the number of human beings we help off our streets and into a better life, and by conditions on our streets also improving at the same time. So I'm setting an ambitious, but I believe an achievable goal for my second term. By the time I leave office, we will move at least 8,000 people out of homelessness, and we will remove them out of homelessness forever. And we'll build a system that ends a person's homelessness before it becomes chronic. That's another thing that we learned from the Navigation Center. And we'll do this, and we'll achieve this all together. We'll do this by housing families, veterans, long-term homeless through the Homeward Bound program, and long-term care for the seriously mentally ill. I also need cooperation from the private sector and philanthropic partners to participate as well. I've already started good conversations with San Francisco's business leaders on this particular goal. Business leaders, big and small, about a multi-year partnership to add additional navigation centers to our city's portfolio. To them, across the board, I say thank you, and I begin by saying a personal thank you to our first anonymous private donor to the first Navigation Center. I'm excited for our partnerships to develop more in the coming months, just like the way we started our first Navigation Center. It was a partnership with interfaith, with our funding sources, with our community in the mission, and then everybody else. We need more partnership models like our effort to end family homelessness in our elementary schools, which has been the focus of Lynn and Mark Benioff, two great civic leaders. No less different then our technology leaders like Ron Conway and others who also became a partner to end veterans' homelessness by funding an invaluable new housing for them in Mission Bay. Letting people live on our streets, exposed to violence and weather, that's not compassion. We all know that. It isn't healthy. It certainly isn't safe. And it doesn't represent who we are as San Francisco, and it certainly is not our San Francisco values. You know, I'm also proud of our city coming together over something that used to be controversial, and I'm talking about Laura's Law. Thank you, Supervisor Mark Farrell. Thank you for your leadership in this effort on an issue that used to divide a lot of us. Now it unites us with a common cause because we're figuring it out. Since we launched our consensus program just last month, you know, we've already received 28 referrals from concerned family members and community service providers. 28 people in need of our help. Some of the most severely mentally ill, they are finally getting help that they didn't get before. Laura's Law is just one of the many compassionate programs we should be doing in partnership with our courts and our district attorney and our justice system. San Francisco values means we won't ever lock people up or persecute them just for being mentally ill. That's simply never going to happen, and certainly won't happen as long as I'm mayor. But we can use the resources of our justice system to make sure people are getting better, healthier outcomes. So I want to challenge the courts, our public defender, our district attorney, our health providers to come together in the same spirit of collaboration that I've proposed today. Coming together with your diverse responsibilities and your legal mandates to better serve those desperately in need of our help. Because I'm going to challenge you with the same outcome I'm calling upon everybody else. Let's talk about not just our legal mandates. Let's also talk about outcomes for people. It is not compassionate, and you will agree with me on this, to let people suffer silently, to medicate with drugs and alcohol, to live an unhealthy life on our streets. That's not compassion. And we are empowered to help these seriously mentally ill people, but we first have to agree to cooperate. In the new year, I'll be inviting all of our government stakeholders in mental health and criminal justice to convene with me. I'm bringing this group together to get past the reasons that we cannot do things and figure out a way that we can do it. Let's say, for example, you take this program. Some of you in this room know what the 5150 program is. It's a program that you know that when people who are in personal crisis, danger to themselves, to the people around them, we take them to the hospital for 72 hours. But you know what's the challenging part of that 5150 program? Once they come out, they go right back on the streets and into the same unhealthy situation that they were literally 48 hours ago. We pulled them out, and then we bring them right back in. That's 5150. Let's redesign that program for a better outcome, a sustained, healthier outcome for those individuals. Let's redesign conservatorship programs to better serve the intended populations while respecting their civil liberties. We can have a better outcome on that as well. The seriously mentally ill deserve our best efforts. It's complicated, and that's why we take that challenge up. As we focus on getting people into healthier settings, we also need to refocus on the people who are not homeless, the people who prey on our homeless, drug dealers who target the addicted and mentally ill, contributing to serious health problems. I am calling for stepped up enforcement for predatory drug dealing around our navigation centers, around our shelters, around our homeless service locations, and every place we house our homeless. We need to clean up drug dealing around the buildings where homeless people are trying to clean up their own lives. We are not criminalizing drug addiction. We won't go there. We're better enforcing existing laws to protect the most vulnerable. I want to thank Supervisor and President of our Board of Supervisors, London Breed, for being such a leader on these reforms. She's been a strong voice for the quality of life in the district and for reforming our treatment of the mentally ill. So that's why, friends, I am optimistic. A new department, an ambitious goal, our will in our city to succeed on this. We can make homelessness rare. We can make it brief. We can make it a one-time event in people's lives. We can move at least 8,000 people out of homelessness forever. You know, for too long, deeply held and honest ideological differences divided all of us. Some say we're not tough enough. Others will say we're not compassionate enough. Some will say we spend too much money. Others will say we haven't spent enough. Well, it's time to reconcile these disagreements, not to set them aside, but to work through them. If we can cooperate to solve homelessness, the sky's the limit on what else we can achieve together. So I want to say to you, again, we can end homelessness for each individual that we touch, for each family, for each child. We can do that for them. That's what we can define as ending homelessness. And if we do it together, we will have demonstrated that collaboration and cooperation is the best way to move forward. So I want to end by saying thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to me. I'm excited to work with all of you. This will give you a structure to work even more effectively together with all of us. We can do better. We will do better. I'm excited, and we are San Francisco. Thank you very much.